Hi guys, this is Tech Howdy. I welcome you to another video tutorial on creating an ASP.NET Core application with Angular 7. In the last video tutorial, we finished coding the custom validator that is required to compare the password and confirm password. In case if you guys have added an email and confirm email field, you guys can add another custom validator to compare those values. Or you can use the same custom validator as this validator will confirm if both the values match each other. So now what we want to do is first go ahead and initialize our form group, since we have not yet created a form group and we are also getting an error related to our form group in our console. So let's go ahead and initialize our form group. So to initialize our form group, as we did it in our login method, we are going to create a object of form builder. So let's do that. So first thing we want to do is call our form is equal to initialize our insert form. We will use the form builder object and then call the group method, where we will group all the values of our form control inside this method. So we will initialize all the form control values inside this form builder method. So form builder.group method. So now let's go ahead and start coding the required objects that we need to initialize inside our form group. So we have initialized the four values, that's the username, password, confirm password, and email, with the appropriate form controls that we have here inside our form builder.group method. And now the next thing that we want to do inside our registration component is to create a model that can handle this exception errors that are generated when the user is trying to register in our application. Also fix these errors as well. So let's minimize this, go back to our application, and then let's scroll up, and then here actually go back to your component.html for your register component, and then all you want to do is where you have your form tag for this registration form, you just add this attribute, which is form group, and give it a name of insert form. That's what you have initialized your form group to, that is insert form. So you'll name the form group the same that you used in your component.ts for the object. Save this, go back to your application, and here you should not see any more errors. All the errors are now gone. So now we have fixed the errors. We don't have any more errors. Let's minimize these, go back to application, and now let's create our Bootstrap model. So we have so far used the Bootstrap 4 UI elements or components in our application. And to give you guys more information on how we can use other UI components in Angular 7, I have decided not to use the model that is available in Bootstrap 4. Instead, we will make use of another library here, that is ngx-bootstrap. So this is also one of the UI libraries that we can use like Bootstrap. Angular has its Angular version of Bootstrap. It's called ngx-bootstrap, and we can make use of this. As you see, it also has its own versions, and currently the latest version is version 3.3.0. And if you want to have a look at different components, you can also look at different components by going to get started, and all you have to do is look at models, and then you will have different examples models that you can use in your application. Also, this is not it. There are many libraries that are available and UI components that are available that you can use in your application. One of them is Angular Material UI, very popular. And if you go to the components, you can see, like, for example, form controls. Look at this. These are all different types of UIs that are available under Material UI. So it's not that you just have to use Bootstrap. You can use any of these libraries or UI components in your application to make your application look better. So let's use ngx-bootstrap in our application, and we are going to use the model components to display registration related errors. So the first thing that we want to do is go to this documentation, and here you will see in getting started. So if you're on the home page, just go on getting started, and then all you will see under documentation here that you have to use npm to install ngx-bootstrap. So let's copy this command and open our client application in terminal. So all we want to do is right click, tools, open in terminal, and then since I am on Mac, I have to use the sudo command, and if you're on Windows, you don't have to use the sudo command if you have the administrator rights. So all I'm doing is copying this command that I got from the website for ngx bootstrap, and I'm going to hit enter. Now it's going to ask me for my password. Enter my password and enter, and now it will install the npm package for ngx bootstrap. Okay, so the ngx bootstrap has installed. Don't worry if you get any audit fix errors. So we have successfully installed ngx bootstrap now, and we can verify this by going to our package.json file. So click on your package.json file, and you should see ngx bootstrap here. Yeah, and as you see, it has installed ngx bootstrap, the latest available version. So now what we want to do is close this, and now let's create our model for the registration form. To create the model, the first thing that we want to do is import the modal module inside the root of our application. So let's go to the app.module.ts file in our application and open that file. Once we are in the app.module.ts file, first thing that we would do is import the modal module. So let's do that. So let's add our import statement, that is import modal module from ngx bootstrap /module. Next thing that we want to do is add our models module in the imports array so that it can be used in other components. Now, one thing that we need to note here is our models module in ngx bootstrap cannot just be added like this, because our ngx bootstrap needs us to specify that this modal module and all its dependencies need to be injected in the root of our application. Therefore, we will call the modal module.for root method. This is a convention usually used in Material UI and ngx bootstrap, where we specify that the module and the associated dependencies required for this modal module needs to be injected in the root of our application. You would not need to do this in other modules that you have, but for ngx bootstrap, specifically for the modal module, we are going to do this. And also in the router module, we do this because in models there will be multiple instances of a model inside your application. There can be multiple models, and models take over the UI of your application, which means when a model pops up, you cannot do anything on your application, but you will have a separate view that holds the model. So that's why it is important that all other components are aware of what is going inside the model, and therefore we have to inject it in the root of the application. So all these services that run these dependencies will be injected, and they inform the other components if there are any changes in information that is added. And we will do that. We will add these services. You don't need to specify these services here, but we will use it in our component. So let's save this file and we can just close it for now and go to our registration.component.ts, and here we will need to add the required dependencies. So we require two dependencies. One is the BS model service, which is the Bootstrap Model service, and then we require the BS, which is Bootstrap Model reference. So let's go ahead and first add these two dependencies in our import statement. Now I have added this import statement for importing the Bootstrap Model service and the Bootstrap Model reference. Now they both are available under ngx-bootstrap model, and the model service, what it does is when you want to show a model, you want to hide a model. So basically it will handle these events. The service contains all the required methods that we need to handle the model events, and this model service we will instantiate in our constructor. And as we know, it's available under models module, which is going to be injected in the root of our application. So the model service, once again, will look after all these events, and the model reference it is basically the reference to the model template itself. So there will be different models or multiple models. If you are using multiple models in your view, there you can reference each model using this BS model reference object. It might sound a bit confusing at this point, but when I demonstrate to you after creating the model itself and show you the demo in the browser, you will understand what the service does and what the reference does. Now, the next thing that we want to do is inside for this model, we need a template. So let's go ahead to our registration component.html and create a template for our model. If you have already seen the examples of model on ngx bootstrap, each model has its own template, some HTML code, and then when we click on the buttons, the model loads different kinds of model. So in this application, we are just going to use some basic model template, nothing fancy, but just you will get the idea of how the templates work and how to use it in your TS files, component.ts files. So let's go ahead and create this model template. Once again, all the code that we use will be available in the video description. All the code is available in the DevOps repos for this project and is free to use. So let me go ahead and add the code for creating the model template. So I have added the code to create the model template. And since we are using ngbootstrap, the way we create a model template is using the ng template tags. And here I have given the model template a ID of template, and we have a header that calls this as JWT auth registration because we're using registration JWT in our application and registering the user. I can just change this to whatever you like, or whatever you want. You can just change it to whatever you like, sorry. And once you have your header, all we have is a button that is available to close the model, and then we have a list that we have created which will hold all the errors inside the model. So let's save this. A model is created. Please give your model an ID. I have given it an ID of template. Now let's go to our register component.ts and now use this model inside here. Now to access the templates in our component.html and manipulate the data inside these templates, Angular provides us with two kinds of decorators. Like we have a component decorator, we have an injectable decorator, we have another decorator which is called as view child. Now this decorator view child will help us to access the template with the ID template. Since we have created a template with the ID of template, we can now access and manipulate the data inside this template using view child. if we have multiple templates inside this component.html where we need to manipulate the data, then Angular provides us with another decorator which is called as view children. But in our case, I just have one template, so I'm going to use view child, and this view child is imported from the Angular core. So let's add it to the Angular core so we don't get any errors. Next thing, we need to give this object a name, so let's call it modal, since it's going to be our modal template. And now we need to give it a object type, so we will use the template reference. Now the template reference once again is a part of Angular core, and we'll give it a type of any. Now this template reference will basically be used to refer to our template that we just created. So when we are using our model in our service, model service, we would need to use the model reference. And it might again once sound confusing, but when I use it, you will understand why we use the template reference. So we created a model of type template reference, and now this view child is used to access the template, and this is the object type of this object. So don't get confused. Okay, so now the next thing that we want to do is go ahead and create our registration method where we want to use this model, but I will create the registration method in the next video tutorial. But let's go ahead and test our model, because we don't want to go to the next video tutorial without testing this model. So let's go ahead and test this model. To test this model, first thing that we want to do is we need to show this model. So let's create a method, call it as onSubmit. And what I'm going to do, go back to my component and my form, which is the insert form. Here I'm going to call the ngx-submit event. This should be inside the bracket, sorry. And we are going to call, when this event submit event occurs, we want to fire off the onSubmit method. So let's save this, go back here. Now let's, inside the onSubmit method, we will write the code to load the model. So to load the model, first thing that we want to do is inside our properties here, where we have all our properties, create a model reference property. So model ref, and this will be of type PS model ref. We already have added the dependency here. Next thing, in our constructor, we want to instantiate our Bootstrap Model service so that we can show the model. So private, and I'm going to call this as model service, and this will be of type BS model service. So now we have added the object to instantiate the model service, and we have created an object to refer to the model template, the template reference for the model itself. Now to load the model, first thing that we want to do is call the service object, which is the model service, and then we have to call the show method. Okay, and here what do we want to show? We want to show the model, correct? So the model is the template, so let's show the model. And now what we want to do is we want to refer this service to our model reference. In order to show it, we have to use a model reference object. So a model reference object is here, and we will call it assign this model service dot show event to this model reference object. So now that should be it. So as soon as we click the button, the model reference will fire off this model service.show method and show this model template to us. So let's test it. So let's refresh this. Now let's click this, and as you see that we have a model pop-up model in our application now. So that should be it for this video tutorial. Remember that in order to use ngx-bootstrap models, first step is to install the package. Second step is to go to your app routing, that's your root module, and import the modals module. Then import the modals module in the root of your application in the imports array, and then the dependencies that are required to load and reference the model template, which is the model service, and the model reference need to be added in the component where you want to use the model. And then you have to instantiate your service, and you have to also create an object for your model reference. And to access the model inside your template, you have to use the view child decorator and the template ID. And finally, the object reference that we'll give here is the template reference. And then, as it is, to fire off the event to show the model itself using the model reference, we will assign the model service.show method and call the model. So that should be it for this video tutorial. If you have any questions, you can post it in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer them. Please like and subscribe my channel so that I can give you more updated contents every day. And now that should be it. And once again, the code will be available in the DevOps repos. Thank you for watching.